closest aides face jail time after court proceedings that deliver a legal and political one-two punch to his embattled presidency. President Duterte described Communist Party of the Philippines founding chairman Jose Maria Sison as a, quote, discredited leader, saying the exiled leader really abused his own mind. Venezuela is rocked by a 7.3 magnitude earthquake near its northeastern coast, causing panic, although there were no immediate reports of injuries. And Hurricane Lane has grown to a Category 5 storm as it approaches Hawaii with potential for torrential rain, flash flooding, and landslides. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And now to the news. President Duterte described Communist Party of the Philippines founding chairman Jose Maria Sison as a discredited leader, saying the exiled leader really abused his own mind. The president made this remark after Sison said he has been in comatose since Sunday, a rumor dispelled by the president himself by going live on Facebook on Monday night. Now, Sison is currently in the Netherlands, where he has been in exile since 1987. Duterte also called Sison a rebel that is a freeloader for benefiting from the Netherlands healthcare for free.
So, si Sison, I don't know what he means by comatose ako. Kama lang sana ako, pero comatose. Matagal pa ako. You know, Mr. Sison, you are a refugee in that country. You are availing of the funds of the Norwegian people. You do not pay anything. You are studying for free, and you are sick with cancer in and out of the hospital. Lumipat ka na, ask another country to accept you, to give you the refuge, they call it the sanctuary, right of sanctuary. Because you are sick, you might perhaps go to some Belgium or Germany. You stop your kawa ang Norwegian people. They are footing the bill, and you are a rebel that is a free loader. Nagpi-freeload ka lang dyan. So stop it, mahiya ka naman. And you'll never win, I assure you.
The president also said that he's thinking of dumping his smartphone over fears that the CIA is constantly eavesdropping on his conversations and might use his private information to eventually assassinate him. Take a look.
You're talking nonsense. You and the Chamsons. Madidisgrasya ka dyan. Yun ang sabi ng mga sundalo sa akin noon, sir, huwag ka magamit yan. Ito na lang pindot-pindot kasi ito mahirap i-intercept. Lalo na yung pinaka-old model. Kung gamitan na ng isa old model, then mahirapan ang... But I know that ang nakikinig sa akin is United States. Sigurado yan ang CIA. Yan ang papatay sa akin. Amerika, Russia, China, Israel, maybe. And maybe Indonesia. Nakatutok yan sa lahat sa mga leaders. Yung national security o CIA, may ano yan, kanya-kanyang ito, si Duterte. Madidisgrasya ka dyan.
Meanwhile, the president also lashed out at Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau anew for his country's decision to review the planned sale of helicopters to the Philippines over concerns it would be used against communist rebels. The president later ordered the cancellation of the $233 million contract involving 16 Bell helicopters.
For God's sake, Mr. Trudeau, My own citizens are rebelling against us, killing my soldiers and policemen and civilians. And I cannot use the helicopter because they are citizens, but they are out to overthrow my government. If you cannot understand, you should not be there in that mighty post of yours. Because you do not know the history of the world and geopolitics. You are not an
Now, the Philippines is looking at other countries as sources of helicopters. Only recently, Jordan committed to provide the Philippines with 2 Cobra helicopters. To other news now, the U.S. Geological Survey said Venezuela was rocked by a 7.3 magnitude earthquake near its northeastern coast Tuesday, causing buildings to sway and people to run into the street in panic. But there were no reports of fatalities or injuries. Now, the tremor was an added headache for a country whose economy is unraveling amid hyperinflation and widespread grassroots anger with the leftist government. The tremor was felt for several seconds, some 400 kilometers away in the capital Caracas, notably in tall buildings. Many were evacuated for fears of aftershocks or lasting structural damage. People gathered in streets, plazas, and parks, any place to get away from buildings and hug each other. Now they try to desperately make calls with cell phones, but service was disrupted for a while.
Yo estaba sentada y en eso sentí el temblor y yo, está temblando. Y sí, estaba temblando de verdad.
Hemos activado
Now, Interior Minister Nestor Reverol said the prolonged quake was felt in several states, but that for now there are no reports of victims.
Hemos activado todos los equipos del sistema de gestión de riesgo para la evaluación de daños y análisis de necesidades. A esta hora no se reporta ninguna víctima. El sismo fue sentido con una profundidad de 5 kilómetros que fue sentido en varios estados del país. Nueva Esparta, Sucre, Monagas, Bolívar, del Tamacuro, Aragua, Carabobo y Distrito Capital.
Now, he also said some buildings suffered structural damage. The USGS said the tremor occurred just after 5:30 p.m. local time, with the epicenter close to the coast of the state of Sucre at a depth of 123 kilometers. The quake was also felt in Trinidad and Tobago off the coast of Venezuela, causing some minor damage but no fatalities or injuries. Social media in Venezuela were inundated with messages of alarm, particularly in the greater Caracas area that has a population of around 4 million. An emblematic and abandoned skyscraper in Caracas leaned precariously. Now, photos shared by local news outlets and on social media showed cracked buildings in Caracas and Puerto Ordaz in the south. Venezuela is already struggling with an economic and political crisis following 4 years of recession that has seen more than 2 million people flee the country, according to the United Nations. It has left the country with food and medicine shortages and failing public services such as running water, electricity, and transport. Now, the last time the country was hit with a tremor this strong was in 1997, when 73 people were killed in a 7-magnitude quake in Sucre. 30 years earlier, 200 people died after a 6.7 magnitude tremor rocked Caracas. Now, in the village of Sugian on Indonesia's Lombok Island, the remains of a mosque and houses lie in ruins, destroyed by the latest in a series of powerful quakes to rattle the island. Take a look. A new round of air quality advisories were issued for northwestern Alberta as hundreds of wildfires in BC continue to make their presence felt in the province to the east of them. Now residents are advised to brace for more heavy smoke from the blazes. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
For a second week in a row, smoke from forest fires in British Columbia has fouled Alberta air. The air quality in Edmonton is poor, and it isn't much better in the rest of the province. Just how is this affecting people's lives? The most at risk are people with heart and lung conditions. Young children and seniors are also more sensitive to air pollution. Regardless, everyone is being advised to limit their time outdoors and reduce any intense activity. People who experience moderate to severe problems have been told to consult their doctors. The best advice? Stay indoors, but don't open the windows. This will prevent the smoke from drifting inside. An alternative is to go to a public place with air conditioning, such as a shopping mall, recreation center, or public library. In Edmonton, the city closed its outdoor pools, and Calgary canceled many of its outdoor recreational activities. Playgrounds are virtually deserted, and picnic areas and parks are not being used. The smoke forced Edmonton's professional football team to practice indoors this week. And organizers of the Edmonton Marathon are making contingency plans for this weekend's race, just in case the smoke persists. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News, I'm one with 25.
Thank you, Thomas. More than 1 million people have packed relief camps to escape devastating monsoon floods that have killed more than 410 people in India's southwestern state of Kerala. The Kerala government said 1,028,000 people are now in about 3,200 relief camps across the southern state. Now, officials said 6 more bodies were found Monday, taking the death toll to more than 410 since the monsoon started in June. Kerala authorities say they're desperate for funds, and the United Arab Emirates on Tuesday promised $100 million in aid, according to Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, and he announced this after telephone talks with UAE leaders. The rescue operation is now focused on the worst-hit areas, such as Chenganur, where more than 60 centimeters or 2 feet of water blocked many roads as more rain fell on Tuesday. Army team said several thousand people in the town remained in homes inundated by 10 days of torrential downpours. Thousands of Army, Navy, and Air Force personnel have fanned out across the state to help those stranded in remote and hilly areas. Dozens of helicopters and even drones have been dropping food, medicine, and water to cut off villages. All right, we'll take a short break. Keep it here on Eagle News International. Stay tuned. Welcome back. President Trump stood accused of conspiring to commit campaign finance fraud, and two of his closest aides faced jail time after court proceedings delivered a legal and political one-two punch to his embattled presidency. In a drama that played out simultaneously across two U.S. cities, a court found one former aide guilty of 8 charges, and the other pleaded guilty to another 8. Stemming from the federal investigation into the 2016 presidential election. In New York, Trump's longtime fixer, the attorney Michael Cohen, admitted to charges that included making illegal campaign contributions. Cohen detailed how he made pre-election hush payments to porn star Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal. Both claimed to have had affairs with President Trump. But in a sensational twist, Cohen also pointed to the president, or individual 1, as a co-conspirator, alleging that he acted in coordination and at the direction of a candidate for federal office in making those payments. That admission put Trump himself in legal jeopardy, and it raised the prospect that a once trusted lieutenant is ready to spill secrets gathered over decades in exchange for a reduced sentence. The former lawyer and businessman pleaded guilty to 5 counts of tax fraud, 1 of bank fraud, and 2 counts of violating campaign finance laws during the hearing before U.S. District Judge William Pauley in Manhattan. The Deputy U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Robert Khujami, says Cohen will pay a very, very serious price.
Today, as you heard, Michael Cohen pled guilty to 8 felony charges. 5 of those dealt with tax evasion for the years 2012 through 2016, in which he failed to report approximately $4.1 million in reported income, which translates into a loss to the United States Treasury of approximately $1.3 million. In addition, what he did was he worked to pay money to silence 2 women who had information that he believed would be detrimental to the 2016 campaign and to the candidate and the campaign. Mr. Cohen disregarded that training, disregarded that tradition, and decided that he was above the law, and for that he was going to pay a very, very serious price.
Now, while the Cohen drama was unfolding in New York, a jury in Virginia found Trump's one-time campaign chairman Paul Manafort guilty on 8 counts, including bank fraud, tax fraud, and failure to declare foreign bank accounts. Each of the bank fraud counts carries a significant maximum sentence, and the 69-year-old could theoretically live out the remainder of his years in prison, though a legal expert contacted by AFP predicted his sentence would in reality last less than a decade. Now, President Trump expressed regret, calling Manafort a good man.
Paul Manafort's a good man. He was with Ronald Reagan. He was with a lot of different people over the years, and I feel very sad about that. It doesn't involve me, but I still feel, it's a very sad thing that happened. This has nothing to do with Russian collusion. This started as Russian collusion. This has absolutely nothing to do. This is a witch hunt, and it's a disgrace.
Now, while it is U.S. legal tradition that the president cannot be tried, the allegation, if proven, will only increase calls for his impeachment as congressional elections in November come nearer. In other news, clinging to each other for every last second, elderly North and South Korean family members allowed to meet for the first time in nearly 7 decades bid tearful farewells, in all probability forever. Take a look. Now, millions of people were swept apart by the 1950 to 53 Korean War, which left the peninsula split by the impenetrable demilitarized zone and separated brothers and sisters, parents and children, and husbands and wives. Now, over the years, most have died, and fewer than 60,000 South Koreans remain alive who have registered to meet their northern kin at the occasional reunions. This week's are the first for 3 years. those survivors lucky enough to be chosen to take part. 89 families this time, with a similar number to follow later this week, have to cram a lifetime's relationship into just 3 days. Now, when they come to an end, the realities of age and the nuclear-armed North's isolation mean they are unlikely ever to see each other again. The relatives burst into tears when a loudspeaker announcement in a banqueting hall at the North Scenic Mount Kumgang Resort declared the reunion is over. The reunions were halted for 3 years as relations worsened, with the North accelerating its pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. But after a rapid diplomatic thaw, the North Korea leader Kim Jong-un and the South's President Moon Jae-in agreed to restart them at their first summit in April in the DMZ. Kim and U.S. President Trump also held a landmark summit in Singapore in June, but Pyongyang has yet to make clear what concessions it is willing to make on its nuclear arsenal. Hurricane Lane has grown to a Category 5 storm as it approaches Hawaii with potential for torrential rain, flash flooding, and landslides, according to forecasters. Take a look. Now, as per the latest models, the center of Lane will move very close to or over the main Hawaiian Islands from Thursday through Saturday, according to the National Weather Service's Central Pacific Hurricane Center in Honolulu. The storm was packing maximum sustained winds of 160 miles per hour or 260 kilometers per hour. Starting Wednesday night, it was forecast to dump 10 to 15 inches of rain, with isolated amounts greater than 20 inches over the Hawaiian Islands. Now, this is expected to trigger flash flooding and landslides. Hawaii residents rushed to grocery stores Tuesday to stock up on bottled water, ramen, and toilet paper as they face the threat of heavy rain, flash flooding, and high surf from this powerful and erratic hurricane. Meanwhile, with Hurricane Lane bearing down on the state, officials are preparing to open emergency shelters in places that could see the biggest impacts. But in some cases, they say your home might be better than any emergency shelter. Oahu emergency management officials are in the process of reviewing emergency shelter sites island-wide to determine if they're actually safe. Now, some couldn't withstand a Category 1 hurricane. Others are in flood zones already. Right now, officials said there's no master list of shelters. Instead, they will release a list of available shelters when they open. In the meantime, officials are urging residents to identify a safe room in your home or business that could be a spot to take refuge. If you're in a flood-prone area or in an evacuation zone, you shouldn't consider a safe room in your home. And we'll follow up on that story as soon as updates come in. Meanwhile, Italian rescuers continue their search Tuesday for possible survivors of deadly flash flooding in the Calabria region's Pollino National Park, described by hikers as an avalanche of water. Several hiking groups were caught Monday afternoon by the torrential deluge in the Raganello River Gorge in southern Cosenza province. It's unclear whether any people are still unaccounted for, with a spokeswoman for the country's Civil Protection Agency or Civil Protection Service saying 3 people who were reported missing had now been found. The death toll has been revised down to 10 as opposed to 11 as previously reported. Local authorities say 23 people were rescued from the flooding. They said the incident involved 2 groups of 18 hikers each, with powerful floodlights brought up to allow rescuers to work through the night. On Monday, this part of Calabria experienced several hours of heavy rain and strong winds, although conditions began to improve during the evening. Authorities have warned there is a possibility of storms in the region on Tuesday as well. The dramatic gorges carved by the Raganello River are only recommended for experienced hikers due to the many challenges posed by the route, which at certain times of the year is rendered off limits. Eagle News International will be right back. Help!
for all.
Oops, rated PG.
Dapat may mga magulang para sagutin ang mga tanong ng kabataan.
Grabe, rated SPG, maselan.
Itan ang paggabay.
Pag rated MTRCB, rated responsable.
Ang pambansang almusal, pambansang almusal, ang pambansang almusal, pambansang almusal.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng umaga, dito lang sa Net25.
What's that you're holding, Juliana?
Hi, ma'am. Ito po ang Abel Eloco.
Me naman, this is the one tool I cannot leave the house without.
Ito kasi, alam mo naman ako, kilay is life. Kung anong taas ng kilay, yan ang taas ng energy throughout the day.
Gloss with color. Para pwede na siyang lipstick and pwede na siyang ano. You can enjoy.
Wala akong maka-English ka ng kamot-kamot.
Ay, gusto kong aminin. You better come out.
Oh, sabi sa
The Securities and Exchange Commission has approved the establishment of an independent tower company by Telecom that will be in charge of installing cell towers for the delivery of telecommunication services to its subscribers. Globe said the SEC has approved the incorporation of G Towers Incorporated in its disclosure to the Philippine Stock Exchange Wednesday. The establishment of a tower company will help speed up the building and deployment of cellular towers in the country, according to the company. Globe has earlier said that it'll divest all its tower assets in favor of the newly established tower company once this is approved by the SEC. Towers built by the company may also be leased to existing and new telcos to further improve their services amid government efforts to encourage the entry of a new player in the industry. Meanwhile, the Department of Information and Telecommunications and Communications Technology is eyeing to accredit 2 independent tower companies by the first quarter of next year, followed by a 6-month building period for its common tower policy. A common tower will help ensure that services that will be offered by telcos to consumers are affordable and that the costs of constructing towers will not be passed on to them, according to DICT Acting Secretary Eliseo Rio Jr. The lack of cell towers has been identified as one of the barriers to the slow and costly internet services currently being experienced in the country. Meanwhile, Asian markets were mixed Wednesday after a healthy run fueled by hopes for upcoming trade talks between China and the United States, while a double whammy for Donald Trump also jolted optimism. While not expecting a major deal when officials from Beijing and Washington meet, investors are hopeful they can find a way out of the months-long row that has seen tariffs imposed on billions of dollars of goods and stock markets tumble. Recent comments from Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross signaling he plans to hold off on a final decision on whether to impose duties on auto imports has also provided something to cheer. Analysts said Asia was due a breather after recent gains. Tokyo ended the morning 0.5% higher, but Hong Kong slipped 0.2%, and Shanghai was off 0.5%, while Sydney shed 0.4%, with political uncertainty in Canberra adding to selling pressure. Seoul was up 0.3%, while Wellington, Taipei, and Manila also edged higher. Venezuela has devalued the bolivar by 96% under a new exchange rate announced by the central bank. The announcement comes today after new banknotes stripped of 5 zeros entered circulation as part of a radical plan by President Nicolas Maduro to curb hyperinflation, though business leaders criticized the move as counterproductive. The Central Bank of Venezuela set the rate at 68.65 of the new sovereign bolivars to the euro, equivalent to around 60 bolivars per dollar. The previous rate was equivalent to some 2.48 sovereign bolivars to the dollar. Expressed in the previous strong bolivar currency in effect until Monday, it amounts to a hike from 248,210 to 6 million to the dollar. Meanwhile, Venezuelans fear their new currency will lead to a raise in prices of staple goods as they try to get used to their new banknotes, stripped of 5 zeros, which have entered circulation as part of a radical plan by President Maduro to curb hyperinflation. The IMF projects inflation to reach a staggering 1 million% by the end of the year.
El presidente lo que tiene que congelar los precios, o sea, no es nada que saque billete y todo esté caro. ¿Y Venezuela siga siendo peor o qué sé yo?
Ese es el miedo que tengo. De hecho, ahorita voy a supervisar otro supermercado a ver cómo está lo que es lo más importante, los huevos, la carne, la leche, ese tipo de cosas. Él hace que también...
Now, some 2.2 million Venezuelans have already fled the crippling economic and social crisis that developed under Maduro's rule, with the International Monetary Fund projecting inflation to reach a staggering 1 million% by the end of the year. Meanwhile, hundreds of Venezuelan migrants are walking through Ecuador after crossing Colombia and are now requesting help from the Peruvian government to allow them to enter the country. This year, 423,000 Venezuelans have entered Ecuador through the Rumichaca border near the southwestern Colombian town of Ipiales. Alarmed, Ecuador last Saturday put in place rules requiring Venezuelans to show passports rather than just national identity cards. Peru will do the same this Saturday. Now, they plan to walk and hitchhike 840 kilometers in freezing conditions to the crossing at Huaquila in Peru.
El llamado sería ahora a las autoridades del Perú que por favor, de corazón, nos reciban, que abran la puerta para este grupo que quedó en el limbo. Esta marcha es de carácter pacífico, no tenemos ninguna intención de quebrantar ninguna ley, simplemente estamos pidiendo una ayuda humanitaria, así como un día Venezuela apoyó al mundo entero.
Estar en otro sitio es mejor que estar en Venezuela. Nosotros mismos estamos buscando seguridad en otros sitios porque en nuestro país no podemos ni siquiera estar tranquilos.
All right, using small robots equipped with cameras, archaeologists discovered 3 underground galleries, ceramics, and burial sites from the Chavin culture in Peru. Take a look. All right, Eagle News International will be right back.
Health is a is conducting several activities under the theme EBC Cares, enabling a better community. Health and nutrition are key factors on child's learning and well-being. EBC's feeding program encourages the community to combat malnutrition among children and ensure them a healthy future. EBC's cleanup drive and citronella planting hopes to help the community in caring for environment and preventing diseases such as dengue. EBC's public service program, Paglilingkod sa Bayan, Serbisyo para sa Mamamayan, has opened its doors to government agencies so more people can avail of these services. EBC's blood donation program and medical mission continue to spearhead life-saving projects, and EBC's livelihood seminar teaches and guides those who want to have additional income and business. EBC Cares, serving the people in these interesting times.
Federalismo. Maraming mga bansang mauunlad ang nasa ilalim ng sistemang federalismo gaya ng Switzerland, Germany, United States of America, Canada, at Australia. Sa federalismo na kanilang ginagamit, binago nila ang sistema para tumugma sa mga pangangailangan ng kanilang bansa.
Subaybayan ang mas pinalakashang Saganang Mamamayan. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga.
Ang malaking bahay, ang sasakyan, iniisip ng mga tao na kapag meron ka niyan, successful ka. Maraming mga tao, may mga tinatangkilik sa buhay pero hindi sila masaya. Paano ba maging masaya sa buhay na ito? Dapat marunong kang tumanggap ng kahit anong dumarating sa buhay mo. Walang question. Kasi lahat ng tao mamamatay. And para sa akin, ang lahat ng mga bagay sa mundong ito, basura lang. Kaya kung ano man ang kalagayan mo at masaya ka sa buhay na ito, successful ka.
Agila Balita, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 7:30 hanggang alas 8 ng umaga.
In the Asian Games, Cleveland Cavaliers guard Jordan Clarkson fell just short of leading the Philippines to victory over China's own NBA star on his international debut in a thrilling Asian Games basketball encounter on Tuesday.
All right, we have a live report coming in from Brazil. We are joined now by Mr. Jaworski Banzali. Hello, sir.
Good day, Alma. Am I coming in live now?
Yes, you are, sir. How are you?
Yeah, we're good here in Sao Paulo. How's everybody? Hello po.
Yes, sir. First, let me ask you about the migrant crisis right now. Brazil is sending troops, extra police, to the border town of Pacaraima, where Venezuelan migrant camps were attacked and set ablaze. We had a report earlier about Venezuelans fleeing the country and going to Brazil and other border countries like Peru. They're trying to flee the crisis and the recession there. Are there any Filipinos at all reported with the migrants going to Peru and in your area, in your country, in Brazil?
Yeah, reports are coming in, Alma, that Pacaraima would be a potential humanitarian crisis if the government of Brazil won't be able to contain the violence that is happening there right now. And as I recap, it's a spillover of the civil war that is happening right now in Venezuela. And reports are coming in that Venezuelan refugees who were at first were accommodated by the Brazilian government in the one of the northern part of Brazil, but there has been allegation after they were accepted by the Brazilian government that Venezuelan are ransacking stores and doing things that the Brazilians living near Pacaraima are not accustomed to those things. You know, the Brazilians are peaceful people, so they are fighting back. So the government, the Brazilian government, sent forces, military and police forces, to contain the violence, and we are really hoping that violence there would be contained so as not to become a humanitarian crisis. As of the moment, Alma, we don't have reports of any Filipinos near the area of violence, but we will continue to seek those reports if there are Filipinos living near Pacaraima or the border of Brazil and Venezuela.
Okay, so sir, we're running out of time, so let me ask you quickly. Since you are in the border also with Venezuela, and Venezuela was just hit by a 7.3 magnitude earthquake, can you tell us, were you affected at all, or was it felt there at all, or have you received any reactions from our friends in Venezuela at all?
Yeah, Brazil, where I am at right now, Sao Paulo, is not generally affected, but reports are also coming in that the 6.3 to 7.3 magnitude earthquake in Venezuela has done a considerable damage to the city and the country as a whole. As of the moment, Brazilians are not generally affected by this earthquake, but reports are also coming in that the Brazilian government are ready to give humanitarian assistance to the affected Venezuelan people. And I would like to assure everyone that Brazil and its cities are not affected by this 7.3 or 7.0 to 7.5 earthquake. Yes.
Yes, it was indeed a strong earthquake. Sir, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking time to talk with me, and please stay safe.
Thank you to Alma, and we will continue to feed you information as the reports and information comes in. Thank you very much too. Have a safe day there.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, and that's all the time we have for you tonight. That's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25.